even things out a little bit,
He
right?
still lost.
Yeah, he did. He did lose. Just after 8 o'clock on the East Coast, SportsCenter AM continues this Thursday morning. Lindsay Zarniak, Jay Harris, and Kevin Agandi with you.
Brad Okamoto and Teddy Atlas going to join us in minutes with more on this mega fight.
So that's how it might look. All right, here is how some famous crossover fights have gone in the past, as we talk about the fact that McGregor, significant underdog here. The most notable might be 1976. Muhammad Ali fought Japanese wrestler Antonio Inoki under mixed rules. It would score to draw, right? But Ali took so many leg kicks, he ended up having 2 blood clots. UFC champ Randy Couture made quick work of boxer James Toney in the MMA match at UFC 118. Couture submitted him 3 minutes into the match. Toney never fought in MMA again. And who doesn't remember Rocky and the wrestler Thunderlips, played by Hulk Hogan in the movie Rocky III, right? Thunderlips manhandling Rocky until this chokehold, and it ended in a draw.
Take off my gloves, Mick. Take off my gloves. That's all I remember.
So good.
Brett Okamoto
So
joining us now to dig a little deeper into this fight. It's not Hollywood. It feels like it, though, when these guys get behind the microphone. You wrote an article about this fight for ESPN.com saying there's a certain aspect of this fight that you hate. What is that?
Well, it's the fact that Conor McGregor is 28 years old and he's in the prime of his mixed martial arts career. What he did last year in the sport of mixed martial arts was incredible. For me, as someone who was covering this sport, it was amazing to watch. Within a 12-month span, this guy knocked out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds to win a featherweight championship. He had a rivalry with Nate Diaz that will go down as one of the most memorable rivalries in the sport's history. And then he knocked out Eddie Alvarez for the lightweight championship in November. That is an incredible 12-month stretch. And now he's being pulled away from the sport. He's fighting a boxing match. I understand it. He's going to make a lot of money for it. But after he makes this $100 million payday that Dana White's talking about, will he go back to mixed martial arts, or will we see him in all of those fights that I still want to see him in his real sport? That's the part that I don't like about it.
All right, Brett, that's your downside. What's the upside for the UFC in this fight?
Well, I think the most obvious upside for the UFC is the cash that they're going to come in. They haven't disclosed any of the terms of their deal with Conor McGregor, but one piece of this negotiation was that the UFC had to come to terms with Conor McGregor. They're splitting up a little bit of they're splitting that piece of the pie Conor McGregor is getting, so they're going to get paid out of this as well. Conor McGregor is their fighter. They're loaning him to the sport of boxing, so they should be compensated for that. As far as moving forward, they get a lot of exposure out of this. A UFC star is going to be in the biggest boxing match of this year, but I think when it really came down to it as well is that this fight was going to happen. Conor McGregor wanted this fight to happen. I think the UFC decided we should get on board with this as opposed to fighting him on this. It made too much sense to get on board as opposed to trying to stop him from doing it.
Brett, who do you give the mental edge to in this fight?
That's a tough one. Both of these guys are so mentally tough, and I think a big part of that is the preparations. Floyd Mayweather has one of the greatest work ethics we've ever seen in boxing, that I've ever seen in boxing. Conor McGregor is the exact same way. He says things, he says crazy things, he believes in them. I will say that I do think there's an enormous amount of pressure on Floyd Mayweather in this fight. He's supposed to win. If he loses to a guy who has never fought a professional boxing match, that would be a disaster for his legacy. So I will say that I think the night of the fight there will be more pressure on Mayweather, but in terms of a mental edge, I don't know, it is about even.
It's funny you bring that up. You're 100% accurate here when you talk about the pressure on Floyd. What's at stake here for Conor McGregor if he were to lose?
I think nothing. That sounds kind of crazy. If he goes out there and looks awful, I just think that knowing Conor the way I do, he's not the kind of athlete that's going to go out there, fight hard for 3 rounds, and then start looking at the clock, counting down the seconds, waiting for his paycheck to arrive. He's going to be trying the entire fight to finish Floyd Mayweather. And even if he looks bad in doing so at certain points, I think everyone's going to realize, I think the broadcasters are going to remind them that, hey, this is this guy's first fight. He's facing the best boxer of his generation. This is sort of what we expected. McGregor, when he gets in front of you, he is likable. He's entertaining. That's why he's in this spot, and I think he will present himself as well as he can, given the odds stacked against him competitively in this fight.
So, Brett, say at the end of this thing, it's an extravaganza. Everybody makes a ton of money. What do you think the possibility of doing it again with mixed rules?
Zero. But then again, I said 0 when this fight was first talked about. So, but 0. I would say 0.
I just realized I said Mayweather at the top of the show was an underdog. You know when you do that, and I was thinking McGregor. So that's something just made me think of that. I want to clarify.
And Brett, one more question before we let you go, too. When we're talking about Conor McGregor and the idea that he's in his prime, and you're talking about MMA and the UFC, is this just a one and done, let's get into the ring and box because it's Mayweather? Or do you see him transitioning here and saying, let's continue a career in boxing if I can make more money? Or do you think he goes back to the UFC?
You know, I'm going to use a line from McGregor's coach, John Kavanagh, that he told me a couple weeks ago, and that is that nothing would surprise me anymore with Conor McGregor. He could say that he's going to go out and try and win a bowling championship, and you just got to say, okay, the guy has it in his head, he's going to go do that. I would say that I don't think so, just because I do believe that Conor McGregor prefers mixed martial arts. I think he likes to use all the tools at his disposal. He doesn't like the restriction of just fighting with his hands. So I do expect if his fighting career continues, it would be in the UFC, it would not be in the boxing ring.
Brett Okamoto, we appreciate you giving us the primer there on this big fight that's to come August 26th. Thank you very much. And now on the phone, we are joined by the one and only Teddy Atlas. Teddy, how do you describe McGregor's chances against Mayweather?
As far as boxing, obviously, we're talking about boxing standing up, striking, I guess is the term, obviously they use in the MMA world. But it is probably about as good a chance as us seeing Donald Trump have a candlelight dinner with Nancy Pelosi. And that would probably bring a lot of pay-per-view buys. And you know what? The funny thing about that, I'm listening to you guys talk, but there'd probably be more aggression in that fight than there would in this. I mean, if you're really going to get down to, brass tacks, and you're going to get down to the truth. I mean, Floyd's a conservative fighter. He doesn't make exciting fights. I mean, he's great. He's as a wizard. I mean, he's great, and I love him. But, he takes the head out of the ball. I mean, that's what he does. So, and the funny thing that most people, I don't think they realize, or they don't want to realize, because they want their imagination to lead them in this fight. And that's what the promoters want you to do. Your imagination to lead you in this fight. But McGregor is conservative too. He's not the seek and destroy missile that they're going to promote him as being. He's a caveman as far as his skills compared to an elite fighter. There's no doubt about that, but he doesn't fight like a caveman. Those fights I was listening to that guy talk about that he won, those were fights he won by counterpunching, by being patient, by letting the other guy make a mistake and then bring him into a trap, a la Floyd Mayweather. That's what I find the most interesting thing about it is both guys talk a lot, they're promotional geniuses, but they're conservative in the way that they approach things in the ring. But as far as, again, you answer boxing, standing up, from an athletic standpoint, this cannot be competitive if that's what they're going to do. Maybe his best chance to also answer your question to win is by losing. In other words, he's a guy, McGregor being that understands the importance of building one's brand. I mean, that's what everyone talks about. LeBron James building your brand, winning championships. Well, if McGregor was to cheat, if he was to say, the hell with the rules, I'm going to come in low, I'm going to get Floyd down, I'm going to ground and pound him, I'm going to pin him, and then I'm going to raise my hands and say, I'm the king of the universe. If he does that, his brand goes through the roof. Now look, he gets fined $3 million, $5 million. I don't know what they have set up in the contract. Floyd's people better be very, very careful about that. And let's say he loses all his money. What says that he doesn't go and make a deal with some kind of company ahead of time, like Bad Boys? I don't know, something out there that bad behavior is what they want to sell. Well, they could easily be giving him a $20 million deal to do that.
That's an interesting aspect to look at, Teddy, that we haven't broached yet in the last 24 hours. And when you talk about this sport of boxing, which Mayweather makes, very little mistakes, is this the biggest mismatch you've ever seen on paper in the sport of boxing?
No, I mean, look, we had Peter McNeely. Remember years ago when Tyson was going out of prison? I mean, you know, I mean, he was doing pizza pie commercials, but we kind of knew that fight was going to be a blowout. It was a one-round fight, and as far as how to approach a fight, you kind of segued me into, I'm going to kind of ask a question and answer it at the same time. Well, how could he win? Well, it's not by doing that. It's not the way that most people are going to think, which is to just, you know, caution to the wind from McGregor to just walk in and hope he gets lucky and just come forward. That's what McNeely did. And a lot of people that don't know, they read that as being confident. They read that as being courageous, brave. But really what that is wanting to get it over. Wanting to get it over with, having no confidence, knowing that you have no chance, and kamikaze. And so I don't think that that's the way McGregor should approach it. And again, I touched on it earlier. His temperament is really not to approach it that way.
Yeah, McNeely Tyson, that was a pretty big mismatch. Yes, yeah. Teddy, you're right on that one. Teddy Atlas, we appreciate your insight, Teddy. We'll be talking to you again. Thank you.